Well, thank you to everyone listening. Welcome, Shanaaz, to our event, My Life, My Business. Wish I was here. And it's amazing that over the last weeks and so on, we've been talking about, business nuggets just from the experience, from a point of view of a novice biker, which happens to be me. And Shanas actually asked me now, is that, oh, by the way, you did not include snow. So we had the wondrous surprise of having a bit of snowfall or sleet today, and obviously the everybody was taking pictures, and it was actually quite a wonderful sight. But that was the sight. But let me tell you, the experience is what comes with snow is really very, very cold weather. And yes, I did not talk about riding a bike in this kind of weather with snow, you know, prevalent. But today I wanted to just continue with chapter 4 and see how far I get with this. But, you know, as a biker, at some stage, disaster strikes. Now, I had several bites of this cherry in many different instances where I fell off the bike and I had to pick up this heavy piece of, equipment. And I remember a preamble to the date and to the occasion that I'm going to be sharing with you. Remember having a client that I had to travel to on farmland, and so they were actually traveling on dirt roads, and the kind of bike that I ride is made for this. And I thought, oh, wonderful! So I rode with a lot of confidence, etc., and rushing to get to my client because, as I explained, I have a bike to be punctual. It's one of the values that I have. And I remember uh, cornering on dirt road and not thinking twice about cutting the corner, and my back wheel slipped out, and I came crashing down, sliding across the road. And what was so funny? I was lying there a little bit dazed, etc., and a farmer came along in his bucky, and this gentleman was so strong. He picked up my bike with his left hand and picked me up with his other hand, and there he was like, and obviously it was dirt road, and he was shaking me to get the dust off. It was actually shaking in like a rag doll, and that was the I was thankful and embarrassed at the same time. So most of the dust came off. He made sure it was okay, the bike could start, and off he went. I jumped back on, continued riding to the client, and delivered our session. All well adorned in. So obviously I was still warm, and I didn't feel the scrapes, the aches, and the bruises. And so I got off. I had a wonderful time with my client, and I tried to get back on the bike after this hour. So everything stiffened up, and it was a bit of a laughing matter for my client. But I got on the bike and got home and spent the rest of the weekend in bed. And that was just a scrape, and so survived and got back on the bike and just ride, and I just rode it again as normal. But I can tell you that in the year 2009, and I remember the month, which was July, I just contracted with a new client, and this Monday morning I was on my way to this client, excited that finally I got the type of client that I was always aiming for as well. It was a corporate client, and so the same rules apply in terms of being on time and rushed ahead. It was obviously it was a winter's morning, but not a winter like today, with snow. Normal winter's morning, so dressed, with the right apparel and everything. And the last thing that I was really conscious of is realizing that I had about another 20, 25 minutes to go to my to my appointment, and I felt, well, in the traffic, that this was going to be a particular problem if I don't keep going. And so ordinarily I would have been a far more cautious lane splitting, but there were two motorbikes in front of me and another motorbike behind me. So we were like four or so motorbikes lane splitting all at the same time. And I was looking for all kinds of ways to get out behind this bike that was in front of me. It was a super bike with these big, massive tires, and on the super bike was a very slender gentleman, sort of 2/3 my size, but he obviously knew how to handle his machine, and but so we were, and we were pretty slow. And the front person was a very cautious biker and riding very slowly. And so I was looking around, trying to find, maybe it's a 4-lane freeway, and maybe go lane splitting in the adjacent lane. And I looked away briefly to my left, and the next minute I knew. I hit the back of this motorbike in front of me. I hit this front tire, and this ejected me off my bike. And I landed, not in a car or anything, on the tarred road where a motor vehicle has just vacated that portion of the tarred road. So everything came to a screeching halt. So I ejected into the air, and I cannot lie, this is what I said. Oh Lord, here I come, fully expecting that this is now the end of my life as I know it. So I went straight up and landed in this vacant piece of tarred patch of road and straight onto my right knee. And immediately the pain was quite excruciating. My leg was mangled. The bone fragments in my knee all over the place, etc. And my leg was bent unnaturally. And so my experience at that moment was one of a few things. As the pain was so excruciating, I was lying on my side, and I had my gloved hand in the air, just trying to first of all understand just what happened. And I'll never forget that all the motorists came to a stop, and what happens when there's an accident. And two ladies out of separate cars. One came to hold my hand. The other one was asking me some of my details. Where am I? Where was I on my way to? Who am I? Who can she contact, etc. And the first thing I said to her was, please, here's my phone number. This is my client's contact. Can you phone her and just say I won't be able to make it for our appointment? She did. She phoned to let my client know that I was involved in an accident and I won't be able to make it for our appointment. And then she asked me who else to contact, and I thought about a friend that lived not far from where the accident occurred, and she called him, and he was also on the way. I just need to add to you, what was quite weird is that my motorbike was not damaged, didn't even get a scratch. The motorbike came to rest on the side of the barrier of the road, upright, no problem. It was such a freak accident, is that I didn't have any visible scrapes or bruises on me, nowhere. Ambulance finally arrived, injected morphine, and that's when I was bruised, because they were looking for a vein to inject the morphine in, so that caused some sort of skin damage, and rushed off to hospital and so on. And that is just the context in which the accident happened. But I spent a week in hospital. The surgeon, orthopedic surgeon, gave me the option. He said, listen, I can immediately operate on your leg, but I won't be able to do it with the best team possible, because I need to be creative on how I'm going to rebuild this leg and this knee. And or I could wait 3 or 4 days, 3 days actually, and he will assemble his best team to do his best work. I agreed. And so, yeah, 3 days later, I was going to have this operation. But first, they had to kind of secure the leg. And I'll never forget the the experience I had. They put something like a sock to straighten out my leg, and it sounded like, and yeah, it sounded like I was actually giving birth. Uh, I was making the strangest of sounds, guttural on one end of the scale and high pitched on the other. Uh, because it was so totally unexpected in terms of because all they did was they secured the leg obviously at the scene and left it in like that. I can't call it a a challenge. It was not. It was just pain I have never ever in my life experienced. Suffice to say, they rebuilt my leg, put in all kinds of metal work, etc. And I was then discharged with the strict instructions to stay on my back for 4 weeks. Now, here's the context. I was home, on my back, elevated leg, all kinds of Schedule 7 drugs, and trying to just cope and manage through the pain. And this is what I want to talk about. Suddenly, I made a decision to use the motorbike as a strategy in order to service my purpose and to see as many clients that I could impact on a daily basis and aligned to my value system. And I must say, there I was, flat on my back, wondering, as the sole provider of my home, how am I going to continue doing what I love, what I felt I was called to do? And what is interesting, I made the decision that I'm going to continue because while I was waiting for my operation in hospital, they brought me my laptop and I continued working, made phone calls, spoke to all people, etc., chatted to them, etc. And and everybody knew what happened to me because I had to cancel quite a few sessions, meetings with people, and so on. And by the way, this happened around about month end time, so I needed to make sure that my invoices were still being delivered for payment. Otherwise, that would have been a problem. So I did all of those kinds of things. So while at home, I had to figure out how do I stay obedient to doctor's orders, but still be able to carry out my purpose, still do the mentoring and coaching that I feel I was called to do. So, firstly, to obey the doctor, my leg always had to be elevated. I thought, well, okay, from a mobile point of view, I can do two things. One, if I have to sit upright, I need to sit upright with my leg raised. So we organized a wheelchair, and doctor was very upset that we organized a wheelchair because he said this way of sitting in a wheelchair is not what he wanted. Because apparently, it affects your psyche. It's very depressing, and in some way, shape, or form affects your will, to survive and to recover sufficiently. But I did so. I got this wheelchair with this thing that sticks out where you put your leg on and it's raised. And then two things happened. A client of mine came to see me and said, okay, look, he's not going to cancel any of his sessions. They are going to they're going to help me set up the flip chart as I normally did. Set up, I'll be lying flat on my back, and then I will just be giving them instructions in terms of what they need to be writing, in terms of the different action plans that we were working on. And that's what they did. Most of my clients came home, stood in front of the flip chart, and I would be talking to them. And it occurred to me that despite the impediment, despite the accident, despite the fact that on a truly emotional level, I was extremely worried. Who's going to take care of my family? And I realized that my ability was not linked to my leg and being able to walk. My ability was in the way I could think, in the way I could apply my tools, in the way I could still inspire those around me. And it was one of the most wonderful periods of my life because my mind was still focused on delivering and delivering my purpose. Come what may, it was certainly getting the kind of the same endorphin rush, dopamine rush, but mostly the feel good of still helping people feeling. And that's what I've been called to specific, and therefore the serotonin. At the same time, another client made a chauffeur and a vehicle available to me, which meant I could lie flat in the back seat with my leg up and be driven all over the place, and with the wheelchair in the back of this vehicle. And literally, I started coaching sessions literally 3 weeks later, um, with my new client being wheeled into the different offices by my chauffeur who stuck around. He would sit outside the offices and just wheel me in and out, and built up the stamina despite the kinds of strong medicines, medication I was taking. I could still help people in that state. And I found that, sitting in that wheelchair and somebody is looking at me and telling me why a certain action could not be taken, why a certain goal could not be achieved. All I could say was, well, I'm here doing what I've called to do. I've made a plan to keep my commitment. Made a plan, and while I'm keeping my commitments, I am still on time. And I'm still here. It did not trivialize the challenges that they were facing, but what it did highlight was it depends a lot. Well, let me say, maybe say it a different way. It's true when they say your attitude determines your altitude. It's a aircraft term, but definitely the human spirit is extremely strong. And if you're willing, then there is a way. Absolutely. If you are committed to stay true to your purpose, despite the circumstances that you find yourself in, despite the fact that the very things that you depend on are now taken away from you, is to figure out how can I still stay true to the path that I've chosen so that I can live a life of fulfillment and enjoyment. And that's what we talk about, is being present. How do you still be present even though circumstances are no longer as favorable as they used to be? And so for a full month, I was in this wheelchair delivering coaching services. And I must say, I, in that time, shortlisted for tenders and so forth. And I remember being shortlisted for a tender in Nelspruit, of all people. And I stay in Johannesburg, close to Johannesburg, and traveling down to Nelspruit, which is about 4.5 hour drive, four and a half, 5, depending on how fast you drive, but about that time. And I had the most wonderful experience at my age, where my parents came to visit me, and obviously while I was at home, and my dad drove my bakkie while I was in the back, flat in my back on the mattress, and they drove me down to Nelspruit, where I could firstly, we went and we delivered the tender, and came home. I remember it was quite a thing. And one of the fantasies I always had as a child is be able to lie in the back of the bakkie and watch the midnight sky and the stars. And here I had the opportunity as an adult to actually get that very same experience. It was quite a wonderful thing. So why I'm sharing those things, in case you were wondering, is that, you know what, there's a silver lining in every single situation. What is the opportunity in every single situation? And in the end, when I think about it, it was just a situation. And it was quite amazing that the things that I thought I will never have as a grown up, because I missed it as a child, suddenly that wish was fulfilled. And here's the trick: is to be grateful, to recognize it, to then stop and say thank you, it happened, even though your circumstances are what they are. The little things were the fuel, just to keep going, as far as having to make lots and lots of adjustments during the day and so forth. when the wheelchair phase was over, it was crutches for the next 5 months. And I want to tell you something, to the person listening, even if it's just you, that you think your circumstances are such that your life is over, you can no longer carry on. Let me tell you that I have a friend who as a mentor, I call him a guru mentor specifically in business and in sales, and his eyesight deteriorated to such an extent that he can't drive anymore. But that hasn't stopped him facilitating workshops. It hasn't stopped him delivering his speeches. He's found a way to stay true to his purpose. And I just want to say that I had many well meaning people asking me. So, people who in particular did not want me to ride a bike. So they would say, Jacques, so what are you learning from all of this? Does this now mean that you've learned your lesson and you'll never get on a bike again? And I said, well, an accident is not something that you planned. It was an accident. And then I said, if that was true, it was my response. If it was true that I had to learn a lesson and that bike riding is not for me, then I would have thought that my bike would have been totally destroyed. And as I said at the beginning, that bike did not even get all the scratches on my bike was not from that accident. It was from all the falls and scrapes before. And I said, well, if that was true, that bike coming to a standstill vertically, still upright, is an indication to me it was an accident. It was a moment that happened that taught me that when you have a very strong conviction in terms of your purpose and you faithfully stay true to it, then living a fulfilled life is possible. So it's like saying it in a different way. Living a fulfilled life in all seasons is absolutely possible. And I believe, I can prove it just from my own experience. And I just want to wrap up this part of the conversation and say, disaster struck as far as this was concerned. And that brief period, that month in that wheelchair and the 5 months later on crutches, opened up a desire in me to go beyond limitations and constraints. And I just felt I needed to travel. And then this set off a plan which I had to travel to the States. And the whole idea was to travel for the next 10 years. And in 2009, I had the accident. In 2010, the next year, September, I traveled to the States with a barely healed leg. But I went to the States and I went to a place called Fort Worth, Texas. And I stayed there for a week. And that's a discussion for another day. But just to say, my mind became free and started to explore the arts of the possible in every single situation. I started making decisions differently. I started to live my life with a little bit more intention. I can talk to you about 4 years worth of physiotherapy, seeing a biokineticist, just to basically improve the angle of my leg a few degrees. For the first 6-7 months, got the leg to bend as much as possible. But it took us nearly 4 years or 3.5 years later to make the leg bend just another 2 or 3 degrees. So quite an amazing journey. And the doctor said to me, he's rebuilt my leg, but in 9 months' time, he's going to have to do knee replacement surgery. In fact, a year later, when I came back from Texas, when he had a look at my leg, he said to me, your leg is mended so well. And he was quite happy with his own handiwork that he scheduled me for surgery and removed all the metalwork. And it has been, how long has it been now? 15 years ago. And I'm still walking without knee replacement surgery with my purpose intact. So thank you very much for listening. And Shanaaz, are you still there?
Yes, I am still here. So that was a mic dropping discussion. If I had gifts, like my siblings and I chatting gifts and stickers, I'd have sent you like one of those gifts that I sent my friend where Barack Obama drops the mic. So, like with his hand up. So, yeah, I'm definitely not going to be able to top that next week. And so you've hidden the nuggets in chapter 4. I'll remember that when you publish the book. Yeah.
Oh, you are too kind.
Yeah. Well, as I said, that was, several things came through. I stopped making comments in the chat because they were all like amazing, awesome. So yeah, I think that was so many lessons one can learn about that, about your purpose, about not giving up and getting back on the bike literally. So yeah, so that was really great. Thanks so much. I'm so glad I forced my battery like to stay so that I could listen to it. I have no regrets about doing that. It's gonna go off soon, but yeah, thank you so much. That was really great. Yeah, chapter 4. I'll remember that.